Hey guys, thanks for joining me again. I'm Katie Salidas, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about writer advice. And a lot of people out there say, oh, I would love to write a story, but they just don't. And they always ask, well, how do you do it? Well, the number one advice that I always give to any aspiring author out there is butt in chair, write. I mean, that's the bottom line, seriously. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be an author, you have to write. And it's got to be something that you really commit to. You know, a story, a novel, 80,000 words to 100,000 words, or even the shorter stories, if you're only writing, 30 to 60,000 words. That's a lot of words. And to get those words, you actually have to sit down and write them down. So first and best piece of advice for any aspiring writer out there, put your butt in the chair and write, whether that's longhand, which I don't do. I don't know how people can do that. I have, personally, my handwriting's chicken scratch, so nobody can read it. I can barely read it. But yeah, I can't do longhand. Some people do, though. Some people out there, they like to type everything up in Word. Some people use, I think, Scrivener. There's a bunch of different software programs you can use. I actually have this handy-dandy little tool that I like to take with me when I go on trips or if I'm out and about, because it's distraction-free writing. It only, if you look at it, only gives you a little tiny window to see what you're typing. So it really helps with like info dumping, which first drafts for me are always just word spew onto the page, edit it later. And that brings me to my second point of advice. So number one, put your butt in your chair and write. Longhand, type it out. Use some kind of a tool to help you, whatever you got to do, butt in chair, get the words out. Second piece of advice, when you're writing, do not edit your first draft until your first draft is done. That is probably one of the biggest things to stop new authors out there from finishing a story. They get so caught up in, is my story good? Is this line perfect? Is this character interacting well with this other character? And they focus so much on the small things that they don't see the bigger picture. And a lot of times when you're writing a story, some chapters will get cut. Some scenes will get cut. Some things just aren't going to work out. And that's okay. Your first draft is supposed to suck. So remember that. Word spew on the page. Get the entire story out there before you even begin to go back and start editing. Because the moment you start editing yourself, you stop the creative process. And writing is all about getting the story, creating that world, meeting the new characters and developing them. Once you've got the story down, yeah, you can go through and bloody it all up, change it around, cut scenes, add scenes, do whatever you need to. But do not edit until after your first draft is done. The third piece of advice. A lot of people ask me, well, do you plot your stories out? How do you figure out how to put a story together? And there's two different types of writers and a million gray areas in between. We have on the one hand pantsers. Pantsers are the ones who write by the seat of their pants. They essentially have a story idea and they develop it as they write it. On the other side of the spectrum, we have plotters. Now, plotters are the ones that will take all the information and jot it down and make things connect and write up their scenes and their ideas all before they actually sit down and start writing the story. Either way is fine, and there's a million levels of gray in between that. For me personally, I'm kind of in the middle, more towards the pantser side. I tend to write to-do lists for my characters. I get the idea for the characters first, then I get the idea for the world, and then I kind of just throw in, well, I'd like them to do this, I think they should do that, and I create a little to-do list that I use as I go scene by scene and write the story. So pantser, plotter, both are fine. You can be anywhere in the middle of the spectrum. You've got to figure out what your writing style is like and work with that. Don't try and conform to somebody else's style. Write the way you feel most comfortable. Along with that, there's a lot of issue with what is the right word count for a story. Now, there are averages for story lengths. Novellas have a specific word count. Novels have a specific word count. Certain genres do have expected word counts within them. Usually for a novel, it's anywhere from 60,000 to 100,000 words. That's a huge gap that you can fit your story into. For novellas, anything in that 20,000 to 40,000 spectrum. So there's a lot of area to play with on there. But you shouldn't focus so much on the word count itself. What you should focus on is the story. Write the story the way the story needs to be written. Don't worry so much about what the numbers are. Get the story out there, get it revised, get it edited. You'll see in the revision process that you'll either add or cut words. Sometimes we're too wordy, and we have a 100,000 word novel, and by the time editing's done, it's maybe 80,000 words because you didn't need so many words. On the other side of the spectrum, for a lot of pantsers, I've noticed this. I myself, this happens to me a lot. My first draft is always kind of a skeleton draft. It's very, very skinny. And then once I revise, I add more and more as I layer on different things that I didn't think of the first time around. So my 40,000 word first draft could be 60,000 words by the time it's revised. So don't focus so much on what the word counts are as you're writing. Get the story out. And that goes back to the first points that I mentioned. Button, chair, and write. Don't self-edit till the story is done. Don't focus on the word count. It all kind of goes together in creating your story. It helps the creative process to allow you to just get it out there. Now, the other side too is what are your goals with the story? As an author, you have many different ways that you can go. You can be indie, you can be traditional, you could be hybrid, and what path is going to be right for you is really going to depend on what you want out of your story. Are you looking to be an entrepreneur and get out there and sell your books? Indie author might be the way to go for you. And once you've done writing the story, you're going to have to take on the freelance cover art, freelance editors, working on getting yourself published through CreateSpace or Lightning or there's one other one I'm forgetting. But you're going to have to take on all of those other duties. If you're looking for a more traditional route, then you're going to look at finding an agent. You're going to have to really work on writing synopsises and queries to really sell your work to them so that they can sell your work to the bigger houses. If you're looking to go either way and you kind of want to just see what happens, you could try going for an agent. If that doesn't work, you could self-publish. You can go any which way you want to, but you need to figure out what your goals are. And a lot of times when you're writing, you have to write to the market. Now, that's not to say you can't write the story that's in your heart, but when you're looking to publish that story, the market is going to play a huge part in that. The traditional side is looking for something that is almost formulaic in a way. They're looking for something that is kind of familiar to what the audience already sees and knows, but has some new elements to it. They're looking for, let's see, just as a good example, Twilight, and then you looked at 50 Shades of Grey. Those were actually written about the same characters. E.L. James had admitted that she wrote Twilight as a fan fiction, or I'm sorry, she wrote 50 Shades of Grey as a fan fiction of Twilight. And it got picked up and it became a huge bestseller. So look for something, if you're going to go the traditional route, look for something that's very marketable to the current trends out there or to potential future trends. You have to see what's working, what's not. A lot of things are cyclical. Vampires, for instance, they come and go in vogue. So right now they may be out, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to circle back in again. So definitely look at the marketing trends. If you're going to go indie, you have a much faster time getting your stuff to market. So you can write more freely, but you're going to have to take on that goal of marketing yourself. So be aware of that when you're writing. Not to say that you can't write the story that you want to write, but always be aware of what's going to happen next after that. So I think that's it on my list of writer advice for today. If you have any more questions, though, please feel free to comment below with your questions, and I'll try and answer them in the next video. And if you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. And until next time, bye guys.